What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Rich of Review Tech USA, and I'm going to be doing something very, very different today. I am going to be doing an ASMR unboxing of the NES Classic Edition. Now, there are many of you who probably already know what ASMR is, and you're excited for this video. There's many of you who don't know what ASMR is, and there's many of you that do know what ASMR is, and you're going to see the title of this video and run for the hills, and that's okay. For those who don't know what ASMR is, it stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, and they're videos meant to relax you. I've been watching them before I even knew they were called ASMR videos since 2012. I don't get tingles from ASMR videos. They put me to sleep. One of the reasons I initially looked for soft-spoken videos was I worked a night shift job, and it gave me a lot of anxiety. And I typed soft-spoken into YouTube, and I found ASMR. One of the first people I found was Gentle Whispering, and ever since then, I've been a huge addict of ASMR. So here I am, making my own ASMR videos. So there is a story behind this NES Classic. I actually own two of these. The first one I got, I actually purchased and was lucky. I believe I went to GameStop. I know I got it from GameStop, but I went to GameStop and I went to go purchase something else. Totally different reason I went to go purchase something. And got done with the transaction, and the guy behind the counter goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, we also have NES Classics in stock. Would you like one?" And I always promised, if you watch my previous videos, that I wouldn't go out of my way to purchase an NES Classic. If a store had one, I would pick it up, and that's what I did. He had one in stock, just so happened to be there, and I got it from GameStop. Found out shortly after that they were no longer going to be selling NES Classics. Nintendo was discontinuing them, and I didn't want to unbox my NES Classic and play it or make a YouTube video about it, because now it's a piece of history. I know there'll be other classic systems from Nintendo, but I don't think they'll make another NES Classic. So I want to hold on to that one and leave it untouched. I don't want to sell it. That's not what my intention is. I just want to keep it the way it is as a collectible. So it was actually my fiance. She was on Facebook, one of the groups that sell things, and she saw that someone was selling an NES Classic Edition, and they were asking more than the original price. Obviously, it's something discontinued from Nintendo that was very popular, but unlike websites like eBay and Walmart, where third-party sellers were selling it for $500, sometimes thousands of dollars, this person on Facebook only wanted $180, and it included an extra third-party controller for the system. And I really wanted one to play, and I really wanted one to unbox. Maybe something to have in my studio behind me. It would look cool actually displayed. So I was like, you know what? I mean, it's obviously the price is inflated, but you get the extra controller. Granted, it's a third-party NES Classic controller. This system is brand new, untouched. Yeah, in my opinion, it was worth the extra $100. They weren't asking $300, $400, $500 for it. So I'm like, you know what? Tell them we'll pick it up. So we did, and here it is in a bunny bag. bunnies on the bag, the rabbits. I didn't put it in that. That's what it came in with. Very nice couple that gave it to us, that sold it to us. So let's take a look at it. Put the bunny bag aside. There's the system. We'll take a look at the system in a minute. And here is the third-party controller. Now, I may make another ASMR unboxing video, depending on how this one does. I got a wireless NES Classic controller coming, so I can actually enjoy this system, because from what I hear, we'll find out in a few minutes, the wire on the controllers is extremely short. So it makes it impossible to play the system from far away. I think what they expect you to do is to actually have, because I think they give you a long HDMI cord, again we'll find out, is to take the system with you, because you kind of need to touch buttons like the power and reset button on the front of the system to go through the menus, but I haven't played the system yet, so I'm not sure. But anyway, here is this third-party NES Classic controller. See, it's for the NES Classic Edition. Got Donkey Kong on the bottom there. Old school, gray colored NES Classic Control-E, not controller. Excellent spell check going on there. Compatible with NES Classic Edition. But if it works, who cares about typos, right? Nothing special there. NES Classic controller, more sprites. Looks like it's from The Legend of Zelda. Share the fun with a friend. Classic controller can also be used with NES Virtual Console games on your what? Oh dear Lord. The length of 1.5 meters and 1.8 meters. And here we got sprites from, I think, the original Legend of Zelda. Actually, I'm pretty positive they are. And that's pretty much it. So let's crack this open. Let's see what we got here. Let's see how softly I can do this. That's one of my personal pet peeves with an ASMR video, is everything will be going nice and relaxing, and then the ASMR artist will do something really jarring that totally takes you out of the video and like wakes you up. But here is the controller. Again, it feels very third party. You can obviously tell it's not a good like replica or not a Nintendo made product. You can push the D-pad down in the center, which definitely takes some points off. Start and select buttons are rubber, but I feel like they're going to get stuck. Take a look at the back here. And there is no kind of typing or literature back there. Feels like a very cheaply made controller. The travel distance on the D-pad here feels unnatural, which is a little bit disappointing. But again, maybe I might use this and it may perform better than I'm giving it credit for right now. Let's see how long the cord is though, because that's kind of important. Kind of the whole purpose to buy a third-party NES Classic controller is to get a longer cable. So let's see what they do for us here. Okay. That'll definitely go a substantial distance so you can keep your NES Classic in your entertainment center and not have to drag it out on the floor to play games. So don't have high hopes for this. It does make good noises for an ASMR video. I don't have too many high hopes for this though. It's probably going to perform terrible. But it is what it is. Put that over to the side. Move this out of the way. Now let's get to the main event. Are you ready? This is the NES Classic Edition. And it comes with 30 classic games built in. And as you see, Nintendo went the extra distance to make it feel like you're back in the 80s and early 90s again. With the font, have the original Nintendo Entertainment System logo. And it shows the controller, official Nintendo seal of quality. And it shows kind of the standout games here. We have Super Mario Brothers, Metroid, Pac-Man, Zelda, Donkey Kong, Kirby's Adventure, which I like Kirby. It's an excellent platforming game, and I know it's catered towards children, but I wish they gave it an extra challenge mode, because it's a phenomenal platformer, but it's too damn easy. So, let's take a look around the box. Here we have the controller, the actual controller from Nintendo. We have this system. And take a look up on top. Has a nice little drawing of the controller again. That would make for an awesome t-shirt. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Nintendo. But nothing going on there. On the side here, we got some writing there. We got the sprite of Bowser from the original Nintendo, from the original Super Mario Brothers, excuse me. And we got some typing up on top here. It's a retro blast from the past with the return of all the all-time fan favorite Nintendo Entertainment System. This mini-sized NES Classic Edition system is packed with 30 pre-installed classic Nintendo Entertainment System games from the 80s, fully loaded and ready to play using the original style NES Classic controller. Alrighty. Same thing on the other side. Except now on this side we don't have Bowser, we have Link from the original Legend of Zelda for the NES. Alright, let's take a look at the back. Man, look at all the seeing this box art makes me feel like I'm like 6 again. Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2, which we all know the story and controversy behind that. I remember I was sick and out of school for like a month, and when I went to the doctor and I found out they gave me the all clear, they thought I had something really wrong with me as a kid, because I think partially more so because my mom was so happy that I got the clean bill of health from the doctor. She went out and bought me Super Mario Brothers and a goldfish. And I remember being in love with that game. Do you know, fun fact, still to this day, I have never completed Super Mario Brothers. It's probably something embarrassing that I shouldn't admit, but I don't really care. I'd just rather be transparent and honest. Mega Man 2. I remember playing that with my uncle when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I used to have a lot of fun playing that. That was a tough game, though. It still is a tough game. And over on top here we have Final Fantasy. It's interesting. Final Fantasy, the first one for the NES. I remember a neighbor of mine. I used to live in a townhouse complex, and I used to go over his house probably like almost every weekend for a couple years. And I remember going over one day, and he had the Final Fantasy for the NES. Like, this game is so cool, you should try it. And I tried it, and even back then I couldn't get into the turn-based combat. I absolutely love the music from Final Fantasy, though. Haven't touched that game since. Who knows, maybe in my old age I would enjoy it, but as a kid, Final Fantasy just didn't do too much for me. Ice Climber. This game gets a lot of flack. It's, I guess you would say it's a platformer, but what you are is you're a little Eskimo that has a hammer that breaks through the ice, and you're supposed to jump up to the top of each level on each different plateau of ice until you get to the top. I think it's really challenging, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I used to play that a lot as a kid. But you know, there's a lot of people who don't look back on that game too fondly, but I had a blast with it when I was really young. Kid Icarus was a game I never owned, but I liked it a lot. And I borrowed it, not purchased it, but I borrowed it from a friend of mine all the time. And we would play it at my house quite a bit. It's a tough game though, but I absolutely adore the music in Kid Icarus. I love the intro music, and I love the music from the first level. Tough game though, very tough game, at least to me anyway. Now of course, I played as a kid Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! But I believe after the whole debacle that happened with Mike Tyson and a woman, they took him off of the game, and it ended up being just called Punch-Out! Same game, except at the end, the original version with Mike Tyson, he was the final boss, or your final opponent, I should say. And in this version, it's Mr. Dream. Same gameplay, just no Mike Tyson for legal reasons, but yeah. And I don't think he's going to get his license back to be in the game. I don't think Nintendo's going to be knocking on Mike Tyson's door anytime soon. So there you go. Balloon Fight was Nintendo's answer to Joust. You're this little dude who goes around with two balloons on his head looking fairly conspicuous. That's all I'll say. We'll keep this video for ASMR family friendly. And your job is to jump on your opponent's head and knock them into the water where they get eaten by a giant fish. I love this game. I think it's a lot of fun. It's not easy either, but the challenge is solid, and it's definitely a awesome Joust clone that if you're looking to collect for the NES or you're just starting to, I really recommend that game. It's a great game. Super Mario Bros. 3 is not my favorite in the series. I know that's blasphemous. I'm more of a fan of Super Mario World and Super Mario 64, but this is a very good game. Definitely a huge update in the visuals from even Super Mario Bros. 2. Definitely an update in the graphics from Super Mario Bros. 1. Solid gameplay. You turn into different, where you could fly and do different things. I can't think of exactly what it's called right now, but I liked it a lot. But not my favorite. My favorite Super Mario Brothers games are Super Mario Brothers World, like I said, and Super Mario 64. I may even say that I like Super Mario Brothers 2, dare I say it, more so than Super Mario Brothers 3. but it's still a solid game. When has there ever been a bad Mario Brothers game? At least that was developed by Nintendo. Let's not speak of the CDI games, but maybe there'll be a different video. Castlevania. You guys, I guess an ASMR video would be the perfect time to talk about what got me into Castlevania, and it is this game right here. Although this is not my favorite Castlevania, one thing I will say is I was graduating from kindergarten, I believe 1987. Yes, 1987. And my friend Carl and I, we were able to, because we graduated kindergarten, we were able to both get a game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. We both owned the system. And Carl picked Castlevania, and I picked Donkey Kong Jr. Math. And needless to say, we played Donkey Kong Jr. Math for all of maybe 2 minutes. Thought it was terrible, which even as I'm older, it still is considered it is a bad game. Even the way you had to solve math problems was just tedious and ridiculous. It was such a bad idea. And then we put in we went back to his house and we played Castlevania. And that was it. We played it for hours. It was such a phenomenal game. And I remember going home all disappointed because he had Castlevania. I had to go home with Donkey Kong Jr. Math. And then all of a sudden we went back to my apartment and the doorbell rang. And it was my friend's mom coming up the stairs with a copy of Castlevania for the NES because she knew I wanted it so bad, you know. I didn't ask for it. She just knew that we were playing that and I was disappointed in my game. And so she bought, which was amazingly nice of her, she bought me a copy. And ever since then, I am still to this day head over heels over this series. If you haven't played Castlevania games, just do it. Not even just the NES versions. There's so many great installments of Castlevania for the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, PC Engine, the CD version. There's a great Castlevania game for that. Obviously, Castlevania 1 and 3 for the NES are amazing. Super Castlevania 4 is phenomenal. Many Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And there's more too. A lot of the DS games and Game Boy Advance games, Castlevania games I should say, are really good. Really good. So, this started it all for me. Still to this day my favorite series. I remember Dr. Mario. Got that for Christmas of 4th grade. It's Nintendo's spin on Tetris. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. Even as a kid, I remember kind of just going back and forth to playing it on and off. I believe I had the Game Boy version of this though, not the Nintendo version. It was okay. It wasn't bad. Not something I would go back to, but it's a good game. Excitebike is phenomenal. Obviously, I'm sure you can assume from the box art, this is one of the earlier black box games. This is going way back in the NES library or in NES history, but really fun game. Solid controls. Bike racing game. You could create your own tracks. Sadly, you couldn't save them. But really fun game. I'll probably be playing a lot of that. Donkey Kong Jr. The sequel to Donkey Kong, you play as Donkey Kong's son. Really fun old school arcade game from Nintendo. Played a lot of this. I played a lot of Donkey Kong though, not on the Nintendo. I played Donkey Kong on the ColecoVision. So, when I got the Nintendo, I got my dad knew that I had Donkey Kong, for the Coleco already. So he got me Donkey Kong Jr. And it's a fun game. Really, really fun game. Legend of Zelda, or Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link. I didn't dig this one too much. I didn't like the whole overworld going to towns thing. I like the top-down perspective, which probably makes Legend of Zelda for the Super Nintendo, A Link to the Past, my favorite. But this wasn't that bad. I didn't complete it. I mean, I was only like 8 years old at the time, but just the whole, it didn't feel like a Zelda game to me. I thought it strayed too far. Even as a kid, I remember thinking, man, this is not Zelda. You know, I didn't think of the word stray too far from the formula at 8 years old, but it didn't feel right, I guess is the best thing you could say. Ninja Gaiden. Man, I remember I got it in 3rd grade, and I remember playing when I was in 5th grade with my friend Dan, and we tried over and over. There's a certain part in the game, it was fairly far in. This is back in 1992 or 91 now. God, I can't even remember what level it was, but there was this part we just could not get past. And that's Ninja Gaiden for you. It's a very, very punishing game. And from what I hear, and I could be wrong about this is just coming to me now, that the sequel to this game is even harder. Oh dear Lord. I don't know if I can handle that. But here is a list of the games down here. I don't know if you could see, this is a 4K camera, so you probably should be able to see it, but I'm not going to read everyone off to you. So, bunch of good games on there. Bunch of good games. Sadly, it does not have the original Contra, though. And Castlevania 3. Very disappointed it's missing those two, but there's many other ways I could play. I also own the Retro USB, which is a phenomenal clone NES console with HDMI out, which doesn't use emulation or a system on a chip. It uses a field programmable array. So that'll the way games output on that is amazing. So if games are missing on here, I have many, many other ways to play them. So I think it's time to crack this open. Try to do this as quietly as possible. And another promise I make is that in post, if there's any loud, abrupt noises in my ASMR videos, I will edit them out. Many people don't. That is so cool. Do you see that? Make sure it goes up on the camera. Now you're playing with power. For many years, especially during the NES days, that was the Nintendo's marketing slogan. And I think it was actually in that font too. That is so cool. Try to do this again as gentle as possible. See how much of the awesomeness is with this, and it's making me thankful I'm not opening up my original one even more. Let's move this over to the side. We'll get to the main event in a few minutes. This looks like it came out of 1985. Unreal. redeem these points for rewards. If you guys want that, go ahead. Have a blast. And I feel by holding this right now like I'm 5 again. This is all warranty information. That's no fun. That's not what you're here for. You're here to relax and here for the fun stuff, so. Oh my god. The instructions. I will say this. May sound a little mean. If you get confused hooking up the NES Classic to your TV, you maybe gaming shouldn't be your hobby. May get some flack for that, but hey, it's the truth. But anyway, controller, power, HDMI port goes from the console to your TV. You plug the power adapter into the wall, plug your controller in, and you're good to go. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Don't think that takes a rocket scientist to figure that, but let's get some nostalgia going here. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. Wow. This is so going up on my wall. Man, the sense of nostalgia I'm getting right now is unreal. I believe this may be an original picture from back in the day. Either that or they did a lot of post work to make it look original, but I remember seeing this with games that I would get. And there you have the light gun that work with games like Duck Hunt, where you would pull the trigger, and this is the original light gun. This is the one I had. This isn't the one with they actually had to change the color of it because the gun laws in the States changed, and they wanted you to make them like orange or bright colors so people know they're fake guns. But I had this one, and you would play games like Duck Hunt. When you pulled the trigger, the screen would flash, and that would send a signal to the gun, and it would let you know if you hit the target or not. Sad thing is even if you have this gun still, unless you have an old tube television like this, which I had a Sony TV, which this may actually be a Sony TV without the branding, that looked just like this. But if you didn't have a tube TV, if you don't have one anymore, this won't work. So, man, it's crazy. I think this artwork predates when a Nintendo was released. I'm pretty sure. I remember I'm wiping the cobwebs off my memory. I could be wrong. That this was included with my system, or was included with some of the games. And if you look, the artwork was like when the NES was released. Look how different the artwork looks on the cartridges. That's nuts. And how the buttons look different on the system. They're not concave, they're convex. The NES looks like the NES, that didn't change. And then this guy, I had him. This is Rob the Robot. And the NES came out in the States at the time when the US was going through a video game crash, because companies like Atari companies making games for Atari were flooding the market with terrible games, and people kind of just got fed up with buying low quality games and basically got sick of gaming, and because of that, people just stopped buying systems, because there was no quality control. That's where part of the Nintendo seal of quality came from. Basically, Nintendo was letting you know, look, we tested this game from this developer, we trust it, it's a good game. But before that, anyone and their mother could come out with an Atari 2600 game, and a lot of times the games were cash grabs. And because of that, people got sick of buying low quality games. They stopped investing in hardware, and the whole gaming industry, console gaming industry anyway, in the States imploded. So when Nintendo tried to come back in, they needed a system that wasn't like the rest. So what they did was they made the NES not look like a game console. That's why you have this front load design here. They made it look like a VCR, because VCRs at the time were futuristic technology or modern technology, and they wanted the NES to look like part of your home entertainment system at the time. And what else they included? Well, they included the Light Gun 2 was Rob the Robot. And Rob the Robot had 2 games. One that came packing when you got, because I got a very early Nintendo Entertainment System. So I got Rob the Robot, and he came with Gyromite, which is a game where you would use Rob the Robot. It was a weird game where you control pillars to move through a stage where you had to defuse bombs, and there were these muscular looking parrot creatures. I'm not sure if they were parrots, but whatever, we'll call them parrots. And it was such a weird, it was a game only Nintendo can make. It wasn't a good game, but it was so weird and so funny. Like, you had those big muscular parrot dudes, and you were this like scientist going around diffusing bombs, and you could get the parrots to not attack you by feeding them radishes. I don't know, but Rob the Robot, he had sensors in his eyes, and something would blink on screen, and he would control the pillars, and he had these like tops that would spin on the buttons here. It was really cumbersome, really stupid, and really impractical way to play games, but it still worked for Nintendo, because when Nintendo marketed this to resellers, it made them more interested, because it didn't just look like a game console, it looked like more than that. Whereas if they just came out with the Famicom here, which was a really cool system, it was the Famicom in Japan was the same as the NES, and it was a lot smaller. They actually made the NES bigger because they thought the American market wanted something bigger and more robust, whereas the Famicom was much smaller, and Nintendo was afraid that consumers in the States would look at it like a kid's toy, and they didn't want that. So this whole package, granted, the only thing people really cared about in the end was a little bit the light gun, but the thing they only cared about was the system, the NES. This to retailers and resellers was much more appealing. So that's why the NES in the beginning came with all this crap. When in the end, everyone only really cared about was the NES, and maybe a little bit the, like I said, the light gun, but not that much. So, interesting little piece of history that is most definitely going up on my wall. Wow, that is so cool. Unreal. That's amazing. Now you're playing with power since 1985. Yep. Now let's look at the meat and potatoes here. May have already used that saying, but that's okay. Obviously we know what this is, so we'll put this over to the side for a little bit. And oh my goodness, we'll look at the more boring stuff first. This is some pretty cool sounds. Usually I'm not into crinkling sounds with ASMR videos, but this sounds pretty good. This is the power adapter. Looks no different than something you would get for your smartphone. As a matter of fact, shockingly, don't know if you could see, but there is no Nintendo branding on here at all. They just totally went with light on or some third-party manufacturer and got them to make the power adapter, and that's it. So it's a plug, nothing special. Let's see what's under here. Got two other goodies in here. Try to keep this together as possible. Even though this is going to remain unboxed, I'd like to keep it in some kind of order. You can see the mess on my desk. It's amazing. When you do unboxings of things, even regular unboxings, not just ASMR stuff like this, you realize how much waste there is from products that you buy. It's pretty incredible. So, take a look at the, this is an HDMI cable. I'm not going to unwrap it right now, but does this even have Nintendo branding on it? Yes, it does. This does. Okay. So, we have Nintendo branding on the HDMI cable. Very cool. Looks like it's about, I'm going to guess 6 feet. I could be wrong about that, though. But, you know, at least it's a plain Jane HDMI cable, so if you need to get a longer one, it's just an Amazon click away to purchase something new. But it's nice that they include it. We have our power cable here, which again is nothing special. Seems fairly long, and it is micro USB. Boo, 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 boo. Wish it was USB-C, but this originally was only a $60 product, so I guess I can't ask too much, but seems like a fairly long cable again. And at least, even though micro USB is kind of on its way out, it's still common enough, so if you lose this, it's an easy, cheap replacement. That's for power, by the way. Now, for what I'm most interested in. This very well wrapped controller. Wow, this is really, they really want to make sure this showed up in one piece, huh? And here is, oh my goodness, this is what I remember. Wow. This feels identical to an original NES controller. How many hours upon hours and years I put into these. Wow, even the back of it. It literally feels like I have an original Nintendo Entertainment System. And I'm taking out of the box the D-pad. That pushes down in the middle a little bit. Wow. But it still has that same travel, that same throw. And the select and start feel just like they did back in the 80s. And the concave B and A buttons. This throws me, this brings me back, this throws me back. Wrong term. This brings me back. And just like in the 80s, these sharp corners, I mean, it wasn't unbearable, but you feel that it digs. But at the time, this was a revolutionary controller. No one did no one did D-pads. D-pad was a kind of a new thing. Everyone, like for the Atari 2600, had joysticks with, they were uncomfortable, awkward. I mean, God, the 5200 had a god-awful controller, and so did the 7800, the Atari 7800. Really cumbersome controllers. And then Nintendo came out with this thing called a D-pad, and it revolutionized the way we played games. I remember Atari even made, for the 7800, kind of an answer to the Nintendo D-pad with their own controller that was similar. But this changed the way we played games as D-pad. So this takes me back to a time very, very long ago. Much simpler time. And the fact that it's a perfect replica definitely helps with the nostalgia. Man. So I just remember boss fights with Castlevania 3 using this controller, and you know, you would get stressed out, your hands would start to sweat, and you would make sometimes gripping these buttons, you'd slip a little bit because like your thumbs had a little bit of like your palm sweat on them. Long time ago, man. Wow. It's so great to see a new NES controller made by Nintendo in 2017. Who would have thought, huh? Oh, let's see. I'm sorry. I almost wasn't gonna. It's one of the biggest shortcomings from what I hear with the NES Classic. Is the short controller cord. Let's see. And wow. That is very short. That is inexcusably short. I thought they were kidding. This can also be plugged into a Wii controller. It has the same plug on it, which is interesting. But that is an insanely short cord. What were they thinking? So that definitely takes points off, but there's ways they have extension cables and ways around it, but why not just give a longer cord? Very strange. Very, very strange. Still an awesome controller, though. Man, look at all the mess from one tiny, tiny system. Move this over. And now we can look at the main event here. The thing we've all, or I've been waiting for, and I'm sure you too. And here it is. A mini Nintendo Entertainment System. It's amazing to see this. This is encapsulates a big part of my childhood, and it is absolutely spot on. Now obviously, of course, you can't open this up and put cartridges in, but just the whole design, the aesthetic, the look of it is exactly what a Nintendo Entertainment System looked like. If you look under, let's actually feel the power button. That's amazing. Even though it's smaller, it has the same click and solid feel that the Nintendo Entertainment System had, which is great. That's amazing. Wow. you would expect, even though this was made by Nintendo, you know, it's a product that it was a holiday product. They didn't have it out long, and you would think that it would kind of not be. I mean, it's made by Nintendo, so obviously it wasn't going to be low quality, but you would expect them, you know, not to put the extra mile into things like how good the buttons feel. Like, you could actually hear that solid click, just like you would hear on the NES. The reset button's a little bit different. It actually feels like a button on a gamepad. It's not it doesn't have like a deep push like the original NES reset button had. It's more like a feather touch logic button. You actually could hear it. So maybe that's to go through the user interface. And even though it has the same 1 and 2 you would see on the NES, you're obviously not plugging the original Nintendo controllers in. You're plugging in the controllers that it came with, or maybe a Pro controller for the Wii can go in here. Not sure about that though. So that's interesting though. The design, even this right here, the design is so spot on. So spot on. Let's take a look at the back. Sides, nothing special. Nothing special. Shows HDMI in the back. And just like the NES, you have your DC in. That's the same font of what the font looked like, but obviously back in 1986 I got my NES. They didn't have micro USB, but it looked like that. HDMI out. Obviously it didn't have an HDMI out. Actually, how I hooked up my NES as a kid, only for a little while, I used RF, which gave you terrible picture quality on the side of the system, which obviously isn't on the side of these. On the side of the system, they had composite video out and mono audio out. Not sure if it was this side or the other side, but that gave you superior picture quality. And that's how I would hook up my NES. But this is amazing. Oh, one other thing. Obviously this is not going to have that, but on the bottom of the original NES, if you look here on the bottom of the original NES, they had a port, because there was a time Nintendo was thinking about bringing the disc system over to the States, and they didn't. Obviously, you know, Nintendo is not bringing over a disc system for the NES Classics. They don't have that, so that's another difference you're not going to see there. But all in all, this is a solid replica of the original system, and I'm definitely glad that I own 2 of these now. It's a great piece of history. So I want to thank you guys for watching this ASMR unboxing with me and watching me get a huge sense of nostalgia, a bigger one than I've gotten in quite a while. And maybe I might do a review of this too if I have the time. I have so many other projects that I'm backed up on, but maybe I will. Very excited to try this out and see how it does. Interesting little gadget Nintendo came out with, and hope they come out with a Super Nintendo one. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is Rich of Review Tech USA, finishing up his first official. I've had other ASMR videos, but this is my first official one in my opinion. Let me know how you feel about it in the comment section, and I'm gonna go try this thing out. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a good one.